Yeah. Yeah. Again, you've got to be dependent before you become independent. Somebody's got to help you walk before you walk. I mean, that's just the reality. And I think when we start to put it in the context of anything we've been successful in, man, I mean, we can start to realize like, wow, yeah, I guess those were some common themes that someone else helped me along the way. And then really when you look at it, you know, we've just been covered by God this entire time. I was, again, talking to my kids, and the reason I keep bringing up my kids, we're just at this stage where we can start to have conversations that are, more in depth. And so, I was like, when you wake up in the morning and you go from your eyes closed to your eyes, to opening your eyes, do you have to like activate your vision? Do you have to be like, hold up, I got to turn my vision on real quick? Like, just, go gadget vision. Like, like, they're like, no. I'm like, that's just a gift given, dude. Like that's already been given. So God's been working with you this entire time, whether you realize it or not. Like, we don't have to recognize whether God's there for him to work. I'm like, he's been working this entire time. So you've actually been helped by him this entire time. My goal is to help you recognize and become aware of the fact that he's been here the entire time. But with his ultimate divine help and with him using his people, it becomes extraordinary. So it becomes this, the way I've kind of, when I speak, there's an acronym that I use, and I'm like, hey, listen, in order to succeed at work without the sacrifice of all this other stuff, it requires that you get help. And help is an acronym. And H stands for humility. It's really the first step. It is the antithesis. It is the opposite of pride. It is the ability to recognize our dependence. That's really what it is. To me, humility is the ability to recognize our dependence in order for us to be our best self. See, everything else is going to want to teach us something different. Like, you're the man. There's nothing that you can't do. It's you. We take more selfies and are worried so much about, we're so captivated by ourselves. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be, but when it's just us, it's a challenge. So that humility piece allows us to recognize our dependence. And when you can do that, that means you're a forever learner, you're open to correction, and that in position to God, you can say, hey, look, you're here, I'm here, right? The humility allows something for God to pour into. My patients, the patients that have the greatest change, that do the best in my clinic, are the ones that allow me to work on them, right? Because I got some people like, doc, I hurt, but I don't know about this treatment or that treatment, or I'm coming to today's clinic because I've read about 4 or 5 different things, and I think this is pretty much it, and this is what I'm coming to get. I'm like, hey, that's good, but at the end of the day, you've got to allow me to work. You've got to trust.
Here's my response to those kind of people.
Well, what you got, Craig?
It's easy. So give me a name, any name, just first name, any name.
John.
Dr. John. Okay, where did you go to med school? and if you want to be your own doc, don't waste your time coming.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because they're trying to play doc.
Yep. So that humility piece has got to be first. That next step is expertise. And when you really look at it in terms of like my clinic, right? Like, that's how people come to see me. That's how people come to get better, is they first recognize that they have an issue that they can't solve on their own. That's why people come to you, Craig. Am I wrong? Right? They recognize like, hey, I've got a problem that I cannot do on my own. I'm going to go get help. That is the first step, is to allow your cup to be filled by someone else. That's it.
Okay.
So
I gotta interject something.
Okay.
I got a young man that he's like a third son. He's an African-American young man. His father deserted him the day he was conceived. the next day. Played college football, is running his own business here in town. And we were having a conversation yesterday, and he's doing a lot of different things. He's college grad, he's building his business, but he's already identified within 1 year of starting to work the difference between giving quotes on jobs that people think they can do it themselves compared to the things like for concrete. Nobody does their own concrete. Nobody puts in a new driveway, okay? But somebody might try to put in a new deck, but they'll go get quotes and then decide, well, I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
And so, he was talking about, he's already divided in his mind, his business between the things that he gets no pushback because nobody's going to do it themselves compared to the things he bids on where people can do it themselves. They don't want to do it. They don't have time to do it. They don't have the expertise to do it, but they have price resistance type thing.
Yeah.
So what you basically just described in that same vein is the idea that sometimes you got to be really bad. You got to hit the bottom before you can change and pivot, because on the way down, you think you can pump the brakes and fix it yourself.
That's right. That's right. And as long as that is happening, and as long as there's no willingness to say, hey, man, you know what? Maybe I ain't got it. But again, we want to believe, and then we feel like it's weakness. We feel like it's weakness to say, you know what? I ain't got it. Let me tell you something, Craig, and I'm sure you can feel me on this. When something comes across your table that you know is not something you either want to do, your skill set, your gift, I am happy at this point to be like, oh, please, let somebody else do it. Because it is weakness. It is not weakness, it's wisdom. Whenever we can say, okay, dude, like this is not me. And there's a fantastic book that talks about this concept. It's called Who Not How. Fantastic book. Because most of the time when we have a problem, first thing we think about is, how am I going to get this done? Well, this book kind of helps you shift and says, well, instead of thinking, how can I get this done? Ask yourself, who can get this done for me or with me, right? Now, sometimes the answer is still, you got to do it. But like, until we entertain, like, is there somebody else who either needs to be doing this or can help me do this? So, but again, our pride gets in the way. So as soon as you have the H and the humility, the next step is the E, and that's seeking an expert. And this to me is really the explanation of an expert to me is a reliable source of a solution. An expert is a reliable source for a solution. And this is what I'm telling people, look, you got to see God. You got to go with God. He's the manufacturer. He designed things in a certain way. He is the source. No different the way the car needs gas, the phone needs charging. So something fascinating I just recently learned and came to understand was that, we talk about mammals. So like a whale. So a whale, biggest animal in the ocean, is a mammal. It's not like fish in the sea where they like lay eggs and the eggs get like externally fertilized. Like a whale, they have babies, right? They are mammals. They live on oxygen. Now check this out. That means that the whale can only live if it continuously comes up to the surface to get its source of what it needs to live, which is oxygen. If it fails to come to the surface over a period of time, it will begin to drown in its own world, which, by the way, a world he was not necessarily designed for, but lives in anyway. Well, I heard this correlation. I was like, this is brilliant, because we're no different than the whale. We live in a world where everything is a certain way, right? But we can't live without continuing to go to the source of, similar to oxygen in our lives, which is a spiritual source of God. We've got to go there. And if we don't, we're all wondering why we're drowning, why we feel like we're drowning and things are overwhelmed. So let's seek the expert that is a reliable source of a solution for us. That is the next step no different than when somebody makes a call to the office and says, I'm looking for an expert for my knee, and they get them on my schedule. Humility, recognizing your need for someone else. Second step, getting an expert, reliable source that provides a solution. The next step is L. At this point, you got to let go. Again, my patients, when they come and see me, at some point, we've got to develop trust in our relationship enough for them to say, okay, Dr. Bellard, your recommendation, even if it may hurt, I'm going to trust that it's going to help. That means you got to let go some of the things that you came into my office with. Either your preconceived notions, what you thought was going on with your knee, you got to let go of that stuff. You got to leave that stuff behind, thinking that you may be able to just continue to play. But here's the deal. You can't let that go until there's enough trust built between me and you to say, I'm going to put my trust in this person, even though it may hurt. It may not be what I want. I, as the expert, am trying to get you back to your original design.
I want to add something to that, Dr. Craig.
Yeah.
For those unfortunate people that sometimes go see an oncologist or someone like that, and they find out that they've got, a limit on their life. Okay.
Yeah.
They've got 6 months to live or something like that.
Yeah.
The trust doesn't have to be as high. Okay. Because the consequences are so negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a balance there, because when somebody's coming in with knee pain, they're not worried about not, getting their leg amputated. They're not
Absolutely.
worried about those type of things.
Absolutely.
Right. But it's like, that could be, and extenuating circumstances could be the result if they ignore something for extended long period of time, let's say a decade or whatever it might be. Letting go, to me, is more than letting go of the problem. It's letting go of who you thought you were and your identity too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's several things that have to be let go, right? This is so good, because part of what we have to let go is our own way of doing it. You know what I'm saying? Now, in the situation that you just described, Craig, yes, that in the oncology world, different scenario. But in what I do in a performance world, somebody says, I have a problem. I'm trying to get to this place, but I got a problem. No different than where we are in our lives sometimes. Like, man, I got a problem. I get to a certain place. Okay, let's get humbled so we can get some help. 2, let's see an expert. 3, like you said, I'm going to have to let go of who I thought I was. Because sometimes, even with my injury, I had to let go of, who I identified with as an athlete. My lane had to change in terms of how I played, right? So yes, we have to put down some of these identity issues that we have. We've got to put down some of the old past ways of doing things, but we got to put this down, and we've got to allow trust. And so, I told someone the other day, one of the reasons why we use anesthesia is so that we can do our work. Because if I didn't, you wouldn't let me work, right? So we at some point got to have you let go. And part of anesthesia, yes, it is to help with pain control, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't let us work. Because sometimes it might hurt too bad while we're working. And it's no different when it comes to God. Like sometimes, what God say, man, listen, you got to be still. We got to shut you down. But here's the deal. You won't do that if the relationship isn't built enough to be able to trust what he's asking you to do. Right? Or you got to get to a place where it hurt bad enough. What I'm telling people is you don't have to get to that place. You don't have to get to that place to finally get to a point where, all right, you can stop now and just take my word for it. Look, me and plenty of other men have done this before completely. Listen, I did my best to ruin my relationship with my wife and kids, right? Did my best. So I get it, but I don't want you to have to go through that. Just take my word for it. And let's start going to the HEL. And then the P is people. So look at it this way. Once I'm done doing my work on someone, the work's not over, right? I send them to a physical therapist. I send them to a person that I trust and say, listen, I need this person to do these things. I need them to do so many reps. They need to rehabilitate. And you, Mr. or Mrs. Physical Therapist, will be their accountability, their support, and their encouragement. P is you're going to need other people on the road to this. As you work with the ultimate expert, with the ultimate physician in your life, you're going to start to put other people around you that's going to be there to hold you accountable. And guess what? There's going to be some days you won't like them. You know, I didn't like my physical therapist, man, when I was rehabbing for my most recent Achilles injury. I didn't like him, but you know what? I liked the results he helped me get. And I was dependent on him for a while until I could do it on my own. There is no way, let me tell you something, Craig, there's no way that this formula of help does not produce results. There is no way. I don't care. You put this through any area of life, health, wealth, relationships, there's no way it can't work. There is no way it can't work. But here's what I'll tell you. I'm at my best, again, when I'm with me, God, other people. I don't try to do it by myself anymore, because there's no point. You know, I got a big head, man, and I've already run into the wall plenty of times. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of the reasons why I ain't got much hair. You know what I mean? So I've learned my lesson at this point. But much like you said, my goal is I've seen one, I've done one, and now at this point for me is to teach, hopefully not just one, but many, this idea. And I used to do talks, man, and people would say, Dr. Brad, like, you know, what do you do to stay consistent? What's your formula to do this and that? And I would tell them my, you know, this eloquent way of doing things, the Dr. Brad formula. Well, you know what? I don't have a formula anymore, because what I would hate for anybody to think is, man, I got to do that. Like, there's no way I could do that. Let me tell you something. If you could humble yourself a little bit, you're going to be all right. Like, you can do that. There is not a step on here that no one out there can say, oh, I can't do that. Like there's no way. Like,
yeah, I'm going to throw a crazy thing at you. Tom Brady.
Yes.
He did your program. And here's how he did it. He won his 7th ring because of help. He was humble. He went to a different team. He needed to rely on his team. Absolutely. He had to let go of what he did before. LeBron's doing it right now.
Absolutely.
You're changing change your playing style, and you need other people. You know, Mike, the receiving core that Tampa had and the offensive line they had there, you know, a few years ago, and when they won and he got his 7th, wouldn't have happened
at all.
And so Michael Jordan did the same thing. All these guys during the course of their careers, they get humble. They understand that I see LeBron in the playoffs against the Nuggets this year doing what he used to do. He was still valuable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But he was, he would take it to the hole and kick it outside. And he was relying upon his teammates to make threes.
Absolutely.
And one other thought I had when I was listening to you is that one of the biggest dangers to help is being a DIY guy. I mean, you've got to take the DIY game out.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And it's just so much better. It's so much easier, it's not like you get extra credit for doing it all on your own. Like you really don't. Like, you don't get extra credit for doing it all on your own other than just self-praise. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, not to mention, you just don't get there alone. I laugh when I hear these like self-made millionaires. I'm like, self-made millionaire? There is no such thing. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. you served enough people at least that gave you money. Like, you relied on people that you had to serve to earn money. There is no self-made. Like, we all are pieces of a puzzle to some degree to be able to help one another. And so it's just, it doesn't have to be as hard and arduous and of a struggle and obstacle and challenge as it currently is. Life is hard enough. So with that, please understand just the ability to be able to say, you know what, I ain't got it here. Let me go get some expertise from somebody who's done this. Let me then let go of some of these past things. And then let me start getting some people around me who can make sure that I'm doing the thing, that I'm doing the formula of what it takes. But let me tell you, man, life doesn't have to come at the sacrifice of the things that matter. And I'll say this, you know what, as things have changed in my life, man, and, you know, been blessed to, you know, have the clinic that I have and, you know, do the book and all that stuff and spend time at home with my family and all this stuff, you know, it's just this idea that you know, there is no way that this would have happened if I'd have tried to say, you know what, I'm going to do it on my own. And it does come at a sacrifice. I'll be honest. It does come at a sacrifice. But you know what it comes at the sacrifice of, Craig? I can't watch Sports Center like I once did in the past. You know, I can't watch a movie and just binge on Netflix every other night, right? So it comes at a sacrifice, but it comes at the sacrifice of things that aren't really providing a ton of value for me anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I don't have the
I relate to
time.
that.
I don't have the time anymore. So yes, your success will come at a sacrifice, but I would urge you that it comes at the sacrifice of the things that don't really add value to you or any of those things in your life.
I want to add something. My brain always works on acronyms, and you've got help. And under the people part, I would put ACE. You need an ACE person. And that ACE person is an accountability partner. They're a coach, and they're an encourager.
Yes.
And you use support, which is same as a coach. Sports,
Yep.
right? It's like you need ACE people on your team.
Yeah, you need aces, dude. Well, and look at it this way. First of all, when you're looking at expertise, and I said earlier, you know, you see God. Obviously, he's the ultimate coach, he's the ultimate. But like, even in these just different areas in life, you can seek an expert. Like, hey, have you been here? Have you done this? And so you have to consider the source, right? Because everybody wants to give some advice. Everybody got something to say. But at the end of the day, it's like, do you have what I want?
Have you walked that road before?
Have you walked the road to what I'm looking to do? Okay, well then guess what? If you have, well then you probably found your guy. And here's the deal. When they tell you something you don't like or it's feedback, you just gotta take it. This is part of what has to be let go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is the part that has to be let go. If they're like, dude, you're doing it wrong, or that's not going to work, we could either continue to go back to that H that we got to work on of humility, or you could just go to the L and be like, well, I'm going to let this go and just listen to what he says, because they've been there, done that already. You know, they've been down this path already.
Here's the other thing about help. Two of those are changing yourself. And two of those are bringing in like reinforcements. Because seeking an expert and having people are bringing in people. But humility and letting go is changing who you are and how you see yourself and your mental operating system. Because the things that's going to help you is the E and the P. The thing that's going to hold you back are the H and the L if you don't do them.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Let me ask you, Craig, because you work with people, you work with a lot of people. What prevents, because this is what's been really getting to me, and I have my own ideas, but like, what prevents the humility piece, which to me is the first step? We can't even work, which I'm sure you would agree, if if you're like, I don't think I need help. Okay. Like, we might be able to clearly see things are off, things are bad, whatever the case may be. You clearly need some assistance. But and humility is that first piece. What prevents people from saying, yeah, you know what? I need to get out of the way, or I need to recognize my dependence, or let me just go ahead and get this help, or seek this help.
I think it's our ego. And with what our ego does is it's our front stage. It's like if I asked you what's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done, you would tell me something that was embarrassing that might be in the top 10, but it might be at the bottom of the top 10.
Right.
Even if we weren't on air and we were homeboys and I said, hey, yeah, what was the dumbest thing you've ever done? You would not tell me the worst thing you've ever done because you would think that I would look down on you. I wouldn't think as much of you, all those kind of things. And so I think it's ego and dishonest assessment. So like in sports, athletes do this all the time. A dishonest assessment is, hey, it's a game week, it's an important game. It's not a divisional game in the NFL. It's a team you play every 4 years. And you got girls, you got family, you got other things going on. You're distracted and you tell yourself you know the game plan. You fool yourself into thinking you're ready. And then a couple nights of the week, you're up until 3. You're like, yeah, I might be feeling a little tired, but I'll be good for the game. I'm going to be good. Okay. Yeah. And then Sunday comes, you don't know what the heck you're doing, and you're too fatigued to do it. So what happened? Dishonest assessment. Okay. And we do it to ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody does. I do it. Everybody does it in different ways.
Yeah.
We talk ourselves into believing that something is good when it's really not.
Right.
So from a humility standpoint, you talk yourself into thinking, hey, you know what? My friend's dealing with the same thing, so must not be that bad. My neighbor's doing the same thing. It's almost like, guys go to the bars and they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. They can justify it because their 4 best friends are doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, it's justified conformity, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, everybody else is doing it, so it can't be too bad. Even though internally, this is like, I'm not really down for it. I know it's not right, but the cohort is doing it, so it can't be too bad. Yeah.
And one other thing I would add, Dr. Brad, is that I've done this. I think everybody does it to some degree at different times in their lives. You care more about what it looks like than what it is.
Yeah.
So why did you chase success and sacrifice the most important and most valuable assets you have at the expense of making a little bit more money or having a little bit more fame? Because you cared more what it looked like than what it was.
Yeah, man.
We all do that.
Yeah. It's, I remember doing a podcast interview with somebody who was saying they were a speaker and they were like, you know what, I'm more, they said that they were more irritational than they were inspirational, because they said when things hurt bad enough, people move. And sometimes you got to remind people, not in a mean way, right? It's not in a mean, but it's like, can we get real for a second? Can we just get real? So there's an old story. I don't know if you've heard this. That is a story about a guy who is sitting on the porch with a dog, and the dog is next to him, and the dog is just howling. And the dog is just howling. He won't stop howling. And a gentleman is walking by the house where this man is sitting next to this howling dog. And the guy walking by, he can't ignore the fact that this dog is howling and is continuously howling, to the point that he stops at the house and he asks the owner of the dog, he says, sir, your dog is clearly howling. Why is the dog howling? And the owner said, my dog, he said, he's sitting on a nail. He said, well, why won't he get off of the nail? And he said, well, I guess it just don't hurt bad enough. And it reminds me of me. And I think some of us, when it comes to this, it's like, whether it's the conformity, whether it's whatever decisions that are making that aren't in our best interest, even though it has ripple effects, sometimes it's not hurting enough to move. And that whole irritational versus inspirational I was sharing is that he says, I almost help people recognize the pain that originally happened so that they can move. Like, I'm doing you no favors if I'm just helping you say, hey, you know what? It'll be okay. Like, it'll be all right. Well, I don't think it's going to be all right until something different happens.
You almost
Until
need to
something
turn on
different
the,
happens.
you almost need to turn up the heat on people
Yes.
to get them to go, wow, I gotta fix this. I gotta make a change. I gotta go through your help program. I gotta put my ego aside. I've got to be humble, and I gotta start going down that road. And so sometimes I call that bringing the future to the present.
Mm.
So the concept of bringing the future to the present is exactly what it sounds like. You know, when I'm talking to an athlete and I know where it's going.
You fast forward them. You fast forward on them.
Bro, when are you going to tell your wife when you have to go home, call her after you just got cut?
Oof.
You know, because if you keep doing this, you ain't going to be on the team very long.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like you're taking their mind to some more pain in the future and letting them experience it right now.
What would that feel like?
Well,
what would that feel like?
Hey, how intimate is she going to be with you after she finds out that you blew it and you're laying there in bed with her and you're wondering what happened? Like, baby, it's still me.
Oof. I mean, it's the fast forward. It's the fast forward and connecting that to what the pain would feel like. Man. Yeah, man. I mean, at the end of the day, man, I just want to see these guys win. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, man. And it's funny that we're talking, Craig, because it's not until recently I was just like, you know what? The message has got to change, and it's got to be more direct. Humility is the key. I just really feel like humility is the key. If we can get guys understanding, which is why I feel like it's necessary to tell the story, is to tell my story. Because I'm going to tell you, man, like, listen, as long as we got people coming up there looking like they all got it together, coming up on the stage saying they all got it together, been had it together, and then you just do this, you'll be great, man. Nobody's so hard to relate to that. You know what? You probably gonna have me walk up there, think this dude got it together, and I'm gonna come up there saying, listen, dude, I'm just a dude that's put back together. All you happen to see is the part that's been put back together. Like, that's it. That's all I am, is a broken dude put back together. Now, let me tell you the story so you can understand, right? And the more we can have people relate to those stories, the more I think they can be like, you know what? Let me go ahead and talk to somebody, man. Let me go ahead and realize that, yeah, you know what? I'm tired of this pain. Let me go ahead and say, hey, so-and-so, I need to talk to you. As soon as I started talking to my friend Sean, man, everything changed. I mean, everything changed. From that point on, from that point forward, it was moving forward. Not that I didn't make mistakes, not that I don't still make mistakes, but it was an identity shift. It was a behavior shift. It was a spiritual shift. Like, everything changed. And it was, now, unfortunately, got to a point, and everybody's pain threshold's a little different, right, Craig?
Yeah.
Everybody's pain threshold's a little different, but what I'm saying is that it don't have to hurt no more today. You can say, you know what? It hurts enough right now. It hurts enough right now to get off the nail.
Well, one of the things I talk about in Pro Mindset is it's your story. It starts out with your story, and you've got to rewrite your story. Yeah. And so to rewrite your story, you got to be real. And and I could go on and on and on we don't have enough time, but the bottom line is that people are living, most men over 40 are living and operating out of something that happened to them more than a decade ago.
For sure.
And as a concept, until they can reframe it, release it, and rewrite it, they have a difficult time moving forward. And I coach a lot of guys, and everybody's, a guy's 20. That happened. I helped a man in his 50s 23 years ago was the issue. And he's been going in circles for 23 years. So, so the thing I would challenge you on is, I love everything you've said. How can you, so bringing the future to the present can light a fire under their butt in terms of pain, but how can you put them in a frame of mind where they go, this, I got to do something now. How can you create urgency? You're a broken man that's been remodeled or repaired, but that's not society. That's not social media. If you walk into an interview and go, hey man, they go, hey, why should I hire, why should I, have you be in my practice or something? And say, well, I'm a broken man that's repaired. They'd be like, next. Right. So you can't do that.
Right. That's right.
So all along the way, most people don't have none of us have total control of our futures. No. But if you're in corporate America, you can't let people know your weaknesses, your pains, your rejections, your disappointments, your regrets. You keep that under lock and key.
That's right.
I mean, that messes up your image. And then you got somebody you might be competing with for a promotion, and you're just going to leak that to somebody at the right time.
That's right.
And you're done.
That's right. Yeah. Listen, Craig, my goal, man, is to be able to have enough men that can get this help that we're talking about today, so that they can be the man that was the Sean for me. Right? That my heart was open and ready. That can be a safe space, because part of this, just like you said, we don't feel safe sharing this with, sharing some of our stuff, some of the backstage stuff with other people. That's just part of it, but I mean, so for me, one is, living it daily. And again, like I tell my kids, because I say, listen, y'all see dad come into this office every day. My son and I had this conversation the other day, because he's been challenged with some stuff at school and stuff. And I say, son, let me tell you something. You see me walk into this office every morning, don't you? And I pray, and you see me in the word. I say, I don't do this because I'm trying to please God. I do this because I need God. I was like, that's why I do this, right? And so I say that to say that is just to serve as an example. Every day that I'm going to go live this out, because I need God in order to live it out. I can't go do this on my own. So again, I approach the source every day. I approach my expert every day to go out. And then I've got guys that I talk to every week. I talk to my brother. I was on the phone with my brother earlier today, as I was driving home. He's one of my accountability guys, right? So try to live it out. And then as the opportunity arises, when conversations come in my immediate circles. I mean, this happened the other day. We went to a friend's birthday party. It was like one of my son's 12-year-old son's friend's birthday party. And we're going there. All these adults are there, and big old massive party. I saw a guy there that I hadn't seen in a long time. We start talking, dude. By the time we're done, we're talking 2 hours, and he's telling me we didn't even know how we got on the conversation. Now, mind you, I kind of know what's going on, because I kind of just asked some questions. By the time he's like, dude, I don't know how we even got to talking about this, talking about his marriage, talking about how miserable he was. Right. And I'm just like, I'm here, dude. Like, I'm here. Right. So live it out, serve as an example. And then my goal at this point is to go to speak on as many stages as I can and just get the word out, so that guys can just come to understand, man. Like, listen, I get you want to do all you own. I get the praise is awesome and stuff like that. But this is what gets us in trouble. Right. God never designed us to go and rule on our own, rule and dominate on our own. He wants us to rule, and he wants us to dominate, and he wants us to be successful. Absolutely. But not alone, but with him.
Jesus
So-
had 12 disciples for a reason.
Yes.
And those disciples had buddy disciples after Jesus left,
Yes.
right? And they traveled in pairs for a reason.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be a lone wolf and be successful.
Yeah. I mean, look, and people are doing it, but again, it comes when you do it that way, when you're trying to do it all by yourself, it comes at a sacrifice to it. It comes at a sacrifice that none of us really, when it comes down to it, really want to pay. Like,
and
no one wants to pay that sacrifice. Whenever we're on our deathbed or whenever we're looking back and we're seeing the destruction and the pillage that happened as a result of the success that we had.
Right.
Like, we don't want to look back and be like, dude, was it worth that? Was it worth the destruction that was caused for the success that I had? What am I going to be remembered for? You know what I mean? It's not worth.
Dr. Brad, I want to thank you very much. I can't believe how long we've taken. We might have to break this up into 2 episodes, but why don't you share with everybody how they can find you? Social media, your website, things like that.
Yeah, so website is drbradmd.com. That's drbradmd.com. We're shifting a few things on there, but the book is on there. You can get the book, Elite, A Modern Success Guide to Purpose and Peak Performance. We talk about, or I talk about some of what Craig and I are talking about on here. My focus at this point is really speaking. So there's a speakers tab on there that, really is outlining the message again. All that's in the process of kind of being revamped, but that's where you can find me. And then on social media, typically on Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can find me again on Instagram. That's dr_RADMD. So Dr. Brad MD. If you just look that up, I'll probably pop up. And then on LinkedIn, it's the same thing, Dr. Brad MD.
All right, brother. Hang in there. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the conversation. Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of PerforMENce Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review PerforMENce Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.